It's true. It's one of my selling tactics. I look really cute and sweet, but I'm a silent killer. I'm kidding. I'm not. So I'm Ashliey Wasson. I'm the team leader of Oahu Lux Homes, eXp Realty. So a little about me. I am a mom. I have a 7-year-old, and she is my everything. She changed my life. So I think why is because my why changed. Everything about how I carried myself, how I treated business. So yeah, I've been in the industry 12 years, but how I did business before I became a mom shifted. So I didn't truly start picking up until my daughter was a few years old. I had to rebuild myself. I was a single mom for some time, and that was really hard. I had to reconstruct everything that I knew about myself. I had to rebuild my mentality, and I had to build my business because before I was just doing it for fun, for me. I think I've always been ambitious because growing up, I wanted to be a people doctor during the week, an animal doctor on the weekends, and an outer space doctor on holidays. My daughter picks up dog poop 100 days for $100, so she's saving up to start her cupcake business.
Saving up the dog poop?
We had 3 dogs, and she would pick up our dog poop for 100 days for $100 because she was like, how do I get a $100 bill? She'd see me giving it to the landscaper. And she's like, oh, how am I going to do this cupcake business? I was like, I don't know. Sprinkles are expensive. Inflation. Figure it out. I got into real estate when I was 20 years old. So I actually started working at Dunkin' Donuts when I was 14 years old. There's no labor laws in New Hampshire, where I'm from. And I had 4 or 5 jobs in high school. I was always just, well, you saw what I wanted to do growing up. I got into real estate when I first came to Hawaii 12, 13 years ago. I was looking at property, and the property manager said, you should get into real estate. And I was like, okay. I just always rolled with it. That's how I even got to Hawaii. And I was like, I don't know what real estate does, or what do you do? I have no idea, but I'll figure it out. I was going to be a scuba dive instructor, and they don't pay you, so I decided I probably want to live in a house, not on the beach. And I was going to school for paralegal, and I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I was like, okay, so maybe this real estate thing will get me there. I was so green, I thought escrow was a fish. I literally had no idea. And if you guys are familiar with Oahu, I lived in Hau'ula, and I was 20 years old, and I knew nobody, and I looked semi-homeless. I was a scuba diver, so my hair was always, well, I looked like I belonged in the water. I remember one guy, I hung out with a lot of military, and they'd be like, so what are you going to do with your hair? I was like, what's wrong with it?
Shave it.
Apparently I got to shave it. And I am an undercover hippie who shaves. So I wanted to talk, originally it was going to be about repeat and referral business. And as I was coming up with, well, how and why do I have repeat and referral business? And it came down to, I started working with investors. And that definition had changed for me over time. I had originally thought, when I thought investors, professional investors, right? But as I got into real estate, I realized anybody can be an investor. You have mom and pop, you have professional. So I thought I would lay out 6 things that you need to know if you want to work with investors or convert your clientele base to thinking like an investor. 1, know your market. And this doesn't matter if you're working with investors or not, right? You should know your market. Is it an equity or a cash flow market? That's important. Here in Hawaii, we are an equity market, which means people are not going to buy with the intention of getting cash flow monthly, most likely, unless if they're buying multifamily or house hacking. What are the economic drivers? What businesses are in your market? Is there going to be any jobs coming to your market? Are they going to be leaving? Buyer demographics. Where are the buyers coming from? Are they international? Are they local? Appreciation, depreciation, zoning, especially if you are working with investors, you need to understand your zoning. There's zoning charts. You can Google zoning in your island, and you get the PDF. It's about 150 pages long. It's really dry, but my gosh, it's a load of information. What's the path of progress? What developments are happening? In Oahu, we have the rail. You want to know what's happening, what's going on, so that you can, encourage your client. You can talk to them about what's going to be moving forward. You think in 5-10 years in that area. What are the regulations? I know on Oahu we have Bill 41. That's going to affect a lot of your short-term investors. Culture is huge. Sometimes your clients have to be educated about the culture here in Hawaii, even if they're born and raised, which I work with majority born and raised Hawaii residents who are investors. And they're like, I saw this amazing lot and it's 20,000 square feet. And I think we can build 4 houses and maybe 3 duplexes. And guess where it is? It's in Hauula. I'm like, I don't think they're gonna like that. So let's go check out the neighborhood. 2, know the strategies of investing. You don't have to know them all, but a general base knowledge will not just help your client, but it will help you. Because why does the investor have to be just the client? It can be you as well. Real estate doesn't have to be, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It can be an opportunity, a vehicle for all of us. So there's more strategies than what I listed here, but here are some examples. You have your fix and flip, development, syndication, short-term, house hacking. A show of hand, does anyone know what house hacking is? Yes. House hacking is, when you go from surviving to thriving. I can't afford to live in Hawaii, but I'm going to rent out the spot in the back. I'm going to put a little wet bar back there, and then maybe I'll build something over the garage. And then that becomes a makeshift multifamily for you. Hard to get property management for that, though. Just keep that in mind if you have any clients who are trying to do that. Commercial, multifamily, buy and hold. All of these involve, you can niche in them or you can have a general knowledge. You might have some people who niche in fix and flip investors. You might have some people who niche in short-term vacation rentals.
What's syndication?
Syndication is when you have a syndicator who takes on the brunt of finding a project and they raise up capital because they want to buy maybe a hotel, or maybe they want to buy a very large commercial estate, or they want to buy a hospital. So most people don't have capital for that, right? So you pull everyone together, you find the deal, you vet it, everyone has minimal partnerships, and then they get paid. 3, know your clientele. Are they professional or retail? Are they purchasing on an LLC or are they purchasing in their name? If it's a mom and pop, they might be purchasing a multifamily in a trust for their family because they want to hand it down to their kids. If they're a professional, maybe they buy and they open up an LLC specifically to that property. And if they're new, in your experience, you can say, hey, you know what? This is the 3rd house that you're trying to buy. Have you considered opening up an LLC to protect your assets? Are they equity investors or cash flow investors? So you might have professional house flippers whose focus is equity, meaning they're buying for a certain amount, selling for a certain amount minus the cost, and that's their net. Are they thinking, what about short-term capital gains? You might have, and it's important to know these things because you want to have the conversation. So if you're taking your retail buyer and you're going, hey, Auntie, you just bought a house. It's appreciated $300,000. This was, people don't even realize they're stepping stones. They're purchasing stepping stones. We use the term financial freedom through real estate very loosely, and most agents don't actually know what that means. So how are people going to get financially free without being homeless or having to sell? How do you actually leverage that asset? People will preach, people build wealth through real estate, not through their job. Well, how? How do they do that? I think that's important for any agent to at least try to learn, try to know, because then you can help your family, you can help your friends, you can empower them. So to that point, imagine the vehicle that you can provide your average homeowner. You can turn an average buyer or client into a professional investor. Over 12 years, I can't tell you how many people I started helping who now quit their job and are professionally investing in real estate and are more financially free than I wish, kudos to you guys for being here. Because when I first got into real estate, I lived in Hauula and I thought escrow was a fish. So clearly I didn't have a mentor and I didn't know how to go. I didn't know where to go for training or education. So it took me a long time to really get going, to really understand real estate. And if I had known this earlier on, I would have invested earlier on. I would have helped the clients that I helped 10 years ago. They would be more financially free. So I think it's a really powerful tool. And I'm glad that Dylan and everyone here that put this together has provided opportunities like this for us. Because even if you leave with one thing that's going to better your life or your clients, it's a win. 4, how are they financing? Hard money, private money, conventional options, cash, 1031 exchange, owner financing, JV. This might be a foreign language to you. I could do a whole workshop on just this alone, but take a screenshot, Google it, sidebar with me after. Feel free to call me if you guys have any questions. You just need to kind of know these words. So if you have a buyer who's coming, hey, I found you on Zillow. I want to offer on this property. It's a fixer-upper. I'm paying cash. You're so excited to get the deal. You're drafting. I have a cash buyer. And you're like, okay, I need proof of funds. And you get a letter. And you get a letter from an institution. And you're like, wait a minute. This doesn't look like a bank statement. It's probably hard money or private money. So what does that mean? Are you going to expect some hurdles in the process? How can you set the client's expectations? How can you set the agent's expectations on the other side? Because you thinking it's cash, you're doing a 21-day closing, and 18 days in, all of a sudden you get this hiccup, and you're like, what do you mean there's an appraisal? I thought this was cash. Those are some things that you want to know if you're going to work with professional investors and if you're going to help your clients leverage other means. You don't just have to get property through conventional financing or through cash. In fact, a lot of these cash offers that people are seeing these days, especially on houses that need work, it's not their cash. It's private money. It's hard money. It's important to know the difference between those. And when you find a deal and you're talking to somebody, say you're the listing agent, say you helped a client buy a deal and now you're selling it, and somebody comes to you and says, well, they just bought it 3 months ago for X amount of dollars. They're selling it for $300,000 higher. I'm going to offer them less because they're making so much. Well, they don't understand there's acquisition costs. They're paying 2 points to get that money. They're probably paying 10 to 12% interest rates to get that money. They probably had to leverage some private funds. Maybe they had a partnership with whomever gave them those funds. There's a lot of costs outside of the purchase and sale price and typical closing costs. When you explain that to somebody and them taking the risk of purchasing that house, not knowing if a tree is going to grow out of the toilet, they become a lot more understanding. And they're like, oh yeah, actually, I don't mind paying that. Actually, I really appreciate that they had done and took that risk, and now I can buy something that's finished. People feel empowered with information. So how do you learn this? It's a lot of information, and you have to do it. It's like a water hose. It's just so much. So use these resources, podcasts, YouTube. There's forums. Biggerpockets.com is an entry-level forum for beginner investors. They have thousands of episodes, and they're great. Meetups and masterminds, those are local. Like I do a meetup every month on Oahu with investors, and it just naturally attracts people because you are who you surround yourself with, right? It naturally attracts people who start thinking like investors. I have a couple agents in here. They thought they were going to just work with investors. They go to the investor meetups. They learn everything, but for themselves and for their conventional buyers, because now they can take that information and empower them. Conferences, there's so many conferences on the mainland that have to do with investing. Partner with an experienced agent. Experience is priceless. Go ahead and say, hey, so-and-so on Hilo, I have this investor. I don't know what to do. Would you split this with me? I want to learn. Just CC me. I want to be a part of the conversation. I have a commercial mentor, and I say, just take it all. I just want to learn. You can have 100% of it. Just teach me. Get creative and take initiative. The worst is entitled agents. Just do whatever you can to get in front of the information and offer anything that you can do to help so that they can service you. Understanding investing can bring you closer to your financial freedoms as well. I think why I wanted to talk on this topic too is grew up with very humble beginnings. My mom and I, we were homeless quite often, and we would stay with family and friends from time to time. And because I never knew anything about money, I never thought that I would ever have money. And I never went on a family trip. I never went on a vacation. And I remember standing at the school stop, and I saw a home, a single family home at the bus stop. And I was like, wow, can you imagine living in one of those? I bet she has her own bedroom. But there's a yard. There's probably a trampoline back there. And when I got into real estate, and I realized, like, wow, actually, this is really obtainable. There's loans for 0% down. And you can buy it and put another house on it, and you can make money, or you can house hack, and then you're not really paying anything on your mortgage. This is actually not that hard. And then you take that house and you hold it, or you rent it because you house hacked it, or you built an additional rental source on it, and you take that equity and you buy something else, and you get it bigger. And so that's what I did when I was 23 or 24. I was renting in Hauula, and I rescued dogs, and I had a lot of dogs. And I was like, okay, landlords are starting to not like this. I should probably get my own spot. There was 3 properties on Oahu under 500,000 10 years ago that were not Waianae. And one was in Haleiwa, and it was half of a duplex. It was single wall construction. It was between 2 crazy people. One lady was Lee, and the other one was Bruce. I lived next to Bruce Lee. I had one lady throwing harpoons in my yard at my dogs, and I had the other guy like painting yellow lines up the fence because he didn't like the way I was parking. So I finally bought my first house. It was 500 square feet. It was 2-bedroom. It was tiny. And what did I do? Well, I cried every night because I lived next to Bruce Lee. But I got my foot in the door, and it was a fenced yard, and it was a place for my dogs, and that's ultimately what I wanted. And it had a secondary source of income. That house paid my mortgage, and in 2 years, I sold it so that I could avoid capital gains and keep 100%. I bought and I upgraded to a 4-bedroom, and I moved to Wahiawa. It was great. It was so good. There was a house that was falling down. It was tilting, and like it was so much hoarding was in it. It was literally pushing the walls out, and that was my scenic view every day coming home. I could hear my neighbors like right outside the window, but it didn't matter because I was away from Bruce Lee, and I had 4 bedrooms and an office and a yard. It was tropical. It was its own little paradise, and it had old World War II shrapnel holes going through it. So it was a historic home, and I was like, you know what? This home has character. There's something about this that I think will be worthwhile. And what did it have on it? Rental income. It had a secondary dwelling, its own meter. I mean, it needed to be like rebuilt, but it was there. So I ended up moving there, and that was hard. We were a little isolated. We didn't have any friends or family in that area. And I didn't want to be there long term, but I knew something was going to happen in Wahiawa because I'm paying attention. Remember, know your market. Know where things are being developed. Know where the market is headed. And I had looked at the statistics of Wahiawa from helping investors. So over time, I'd started to see and recognize where were investors investing a decade ago. I was helping them. They were investing in Hauula, Wahiawa, Waianae. Those neighborhoods are now being cleaned up for the last decade. And I knew eventually I'm between Mililani and North Shore. Some point, something in between is going to pick up. That house ended up increasing over $250,000 in equity. It now cash flows $2,000 a month. My daughter went from swimming in the recycling bucket to our new home in Kailua that has a pool. Thank God, because she was getting way too big for that bucket. I wanted to refresh the slide because I did include another picture. I leveraged real estate I bought a 48-foot catamaran in Waikiki and had a sailing business at one point as well. I get violently seasick. It didn't work out. But I could do it because of real estate. And that was incredible. If you asked me 20 years ago, if you asked me when I was a little girl, if this is what it would look like, no way. Not possible. Now I can help all of my clients do it. And I can speak from example because I'm doing it. And you guys can do it. So how do you find the deals? Sounds great, right? But how do you find it? Well, MLS, of course, driving for dollars. Quick story about this. Again, mentorship, going to these things is important. When I first started in Ha'ula, escrow was a fish, I had no idea how to get business. My broker at the time was a small boutique, and she said, give one business card a day. I'm like, okay, how do I get business cards? I was desperate for business. I knew nobody on this island, and I was 20 years old, and I looked like I belonged in the water. And I would pull over on the side of the road, and I would say, hey, are you looking to sell? Because there would be a house that looked like no one lived in it, and someone was there. And I drove from town to Ha'ula and everywhere. I would literally pull over the side of the road, and I would just ask people, please work with me. I don't know how, I don't know what to do, but do it. And one house, I'd been on the corner of my street, and it was a half-built home, and I saw people inside, and I pulled over, and I said, hey, are you guys the owners? I've been wanting to get in contact with you. I want to sell your house. And they're like, no, we're trying to buy it. We want the owners too. They were investors. It was my second year in real estate, and I hadn't done a deal my first year. I think one. I harassed my neighbor. I had to make baklava with her and clean her horses. But it was oceanfront, and I had no idea how to leverage it, and I got no further business from it. That investor said, but can you show me the house around the corner? So I showed him the house around the corner. Within the next couple years, we had done a couple dozen deals together. At that time, I didn't know that's called driving for dollars. There's a term for it. Drive around. If you see distressed houses, if you see houses that look like they're vacant, you can drive, look for them in a neighborhood that you have buyers for or that you want to work in, that you have a geographical niche that you want, and mail them. Now the technology, you can reverse prospect their phone numbers, you can get their addresses, you can contact them in a lot of ways. Social media stock their names. Wholesalers, commissioners, your sphere and your social, that's huge because when you start thinking of real estate this way, the law of attraction, people start being attracted to you. They start asking you questions about real estate and they will bring you the deals. You can be talking to Auntie, you can be talking to the plumber, you can be talking to the guy at Starbucks. I ran into a painter that I had met a decade ago at the juice bar, big burly guy, and he was at the vegan juice bar. It was actually really great. And he was like, I remember you from your picture. And I was like, I knew it wasn't too douchey to have my picture on everything. It works. And he said, yeah, you know what? I was thinking about you. You work with investors, right? And even if I was to change my niche completely, people would still think that because I radiate, I think about it, I talk about it all the time. It's natural at this point. And he goes, yeah, I was just painting a house and the one next door is pretty bust up and they want to sell it. And so the deal came to me. Your network, pulling lists, you went over pulling lists with escrow or you went into the tax records, you can actually just pull lists. And with that, you can pull lists. There's escrow's free, of course, and then you have a couple different platforms you can use, PropStream and Reonomy, depending if you're looking for residential or commercial. They're paid, but it's a very minimal cost. And you can go through and you can narrow down, I want off-island. I want people only with LLCs. I want people that have $200,000 minimum in equity. I want people that have owned a home for more than 25 years or maybe 23 years because guess what? It's running out if they've owned a home that long. Their depreciation, tax benefits. So those are good excuses. Maybe they don't know that. Maybe they're like, you know what? Finally, my 30-year mortgage is going to be up soon. I can own my home free and clear, but now you don't have any tax benefits. Not just because of any type of mortgage, but because they don't have depreciation anymore. It's no longer a strong vehicle for them. You can educate them. That's the power of this. How much business can you get from these little nuggets of knowledge and then going and talking to them? You're planting a seed and you're following up and you're watering it, and then they're thanking you forever because you've changed their life. So what is a deal? You found it. What is it? Well, a deal depends on the type of investor, the type of investment. So if you guys ever want to talk story about a deal, how to look for it, that's a very broad question. But for example, say if you're working with a fix and flip investor, they typically have a specific, you ask that investor, what is the return that you want to see? They call it their ROI, their rate of return. And some investors have different levels of ROI depending on the price point. So the ones I work with, they want double digits. A lot of the ones I work with, they're looking for at least 30%. There's a spreadsheet I can send to you guys that help you run numbers, because when you buy and when you sell, how long is the renovation? What are the costs? How big of a construction job is it? Depends on what their ROI is. Say they're mom and pop looking for multifamily. They're looking for cash flow. They might have a minimum amount of cash flow that they want. So once you understand your client, once you understand investments, you can start piecing together deals and understanding numbers. What is a good deal for them? So how do you find investors? Social media. I feel like that's the theme. Calendars and social media. Social media is an incredible platform to reach out. Hashtag investor, hashtag real estate investor. You can go and follow realtors who work with other investors. You're not going for their clients per se, but they're going to have more people that are going to turn into investors. They might want to work with you. Maybe your personality matches with them better. Maybe you took this information and you ran with it and you became an expert that everyone wants to work with. Word of mouth is probably, I found in this niche, the most powerful. I think in any niche, really, word of mouth. I mean, are people raving fans? Are they your walking ambassadors? Does anyone have read it? What's the book about walking ambassadors? I don't know, it's a long day. But walking ambassadors are when you have a vendor, a family friend. It can be another realtor in a different state, but they are your raving fans. And they will just refer you business like crazy. You spoil the bejesus out of them. Masterminds and meetups. There's a Keiko Capital. It's a hard money lender based out of Hawaii, nationwide. They do every Friday. They call it Coffee Talk. It's a Zoom at 10 a.m. Go on there, video on, video off. It doesn't matter. There is so much information in there. And you just put that in your ear and drive, you will hear the terminology. You'll start to get familiar with it. It's a free resource. There's lots of investors who do local meetups and they meet at the projects. They'll start talking about what are the delays with the fridges that they're experiencing. What flooring are they using? What are the trends? Those things not just help with working with investors, but they help with your retail and conventional clients too. It keeps you up with the trends. It keeps you up with costs. Because when you start understanding costs and you're around it all the time and you're walking through a home inspection, and you're talking about needing to replace the cabinets and countertops, you can be like, those are on back order. Plan ahead. Auctions, court steps. And then, of course, anyone has the potential to become an investor with education and motivation. You plant the seed. Get them pumped. Get them so excited. So what are the benefits? Well, it depends on the type of investor. So you choose how people treat you. You choose who you want to work with. But if you choose to work with professional investors and you make your clients investors, it's repeat and referral business. So that's how it kind of all tied in. Why is my business so repeat and referral? I did get a little burnt out for some time after a couple years of working with an investor, but he was brutal. Culture has changed. I cried a lot back then. I became stronger. But I went to VA, and I worked with VA clients for about 3 years. Strongly with another lender. I partnered with the lender, went to military bases, educated veterans on their benefits, and I found that I kept going back into having them invest. Or not having them, but educating them on investment. And I fell back into it. Priceless knowledge. You're learning without taking the risks. That's incredible. Investing can be risky. With any high reward comes high risk. With any high risk comes high reward. And you're essentially, in your business, in a passenger seat, seeing other people's mistakes. You're seeing, what did they learn? How did they lose money, or how did they make money? That is invaluable. Surround yourself, or you're surrounded by opportunity. Once you start doing this with your clients, is that my time?
No.
Oh, okay. Once you're surrounded by opportunity, or once you do this, you're constantly surrounded by opportunity. All of a sudden you might be like, hey, I'll invest in that with you. Or you start getting into this property yourself, and maybe you just buy a first home, a second home, and then you have some equity in it. And then you're like, oh, I can pull out a HELOC for 2.5% for 3 years. I will invest in that project with you at a 12% return. You now have opportunity and the ability to not just become a resource for your clients, change their lives, invest yourself, but the ultimate is we don't want to sell real estate forever. We can't. That's hard. Emotionally, physically. Those open house signs are heavy. We don't want to do this forever. So we've got to find solutions, right? I'm 12 years, 10 more years, I'm hoping I'm doing it because I want to, not because I have to. Okay, more like 2 years. Private lending is one of the most passive forms of investment. It's where you want to strive and achieve, but how can you possibly get to be a private money lender if you don't have money? And if we have commissions, yes, we get paid very well, but if you're truly investing back into your business, you invest that back into your clients and into your business, and you get a little bit of money and you can maybe buy a home, but how do you truly take that and leverage it further? There's little to no marketing costs. So outside of the other Reonomy and PropSheet, I said you can pull lists. Those cost a little bit of money. And then if you mail them or if you want to reverse prospect their phone numbers, you can do that. That costs a little bit of money. You don't have to, though. Driving for dollars costs gas. And then I do put letters in my car. Somebody went over letters. I put letters in my car, so if I ever do get somebody, I found, even to this day, I still do driving for dollars because I'll be driving to a listing appointment and I'll see a house that looks like it might need love. And I pull over and I knock on the door and I just see if someone answers. And I'll leave my business card there. And then I'll write down their address and then I mail them after. And if I have a conversation with them, if I'm door knocking or if I pull over, and it's not I'm intentionally going to look for them, I'll just do that when I'm just doing business in general. I have a stack of $5 gift cards in Starbucks, which I should probably increase to 10 because inflation. And I will write down their names and addresses, and I will go ahead when I get home, throw a stamp on it, and I pop them in the mail. So I will leave you with my tips here. Value is the greatest currency you can offer to your clients, to other agents. If you provide value to somebody, they won't forget you. You become extremely memorable. And again, opportunity will come to you. Having an abundant mindset, I do meetups, I told you, every month, and I think people are sick of me saying this. Have an abundant mindset. Give everything. Share everything. You should never hold anything back. No one's going to do it the way you do, and it'll come to you full circle. It'll take you to high levels. Find your niche. Niche or niche? Find it. Whatever it is.
There's riches and niches.
There's riches and niches.
Thank you. Now I can remember.
If you get into working heavily with investors, that's a niche. You can have a micro niche where you focus on a specific type of investment. Your niche can be working with VA clients, and you can help them and educate them on how to leverage their VA entitlement and leveraging those into investments. So whatever your niche is, this is valuable information for you to know. Pick up your phone. I just needed to throw this in here because I'm in front of a few people. Just pick up the phone. It's probably if you take down one thing, it is pick up your phone. I had somebody call me the last week, and it was a realtor, and they're like, Ash, I'm so surprised you actually pick up your phone. I was like, yeah, how'd you think I got here? It's that easy. Most agents don't pick it up. Be a connector. What I've observed as I started surrounding myself with people with a lot of money is they don't do a lot. You know, the highest level attorney, they're always playing golf. Yeah, you're like, why am I spending 80 hours in the office and you're here like 10 and you're out there mingling all the time? Because they're connecting people. Yeah. Dylan, you're being a connector. How much business, you don't even know what's coming your way by doing it, but it just happens. When you're a connector and you're like, hey, you definitely need to talk to so-and-so. They help with events. They don't forget you. They'll remember how they got there. It all comes full circle to being an abundant-minded person. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to do that because then they won't have time for me. Or they might not be available for me. Just connect them. Something else will be available for you, something better. And don't stop at paper walls. What I mean by that is we often come to a problem and then we stop. I'm like, well, that happened. Be a problem solver. most agents I found do not solve problems. They'd be like, well, I don't know what to do. You know, I can't even come up with an example. I'm exhausted. Let's say, bring a solution with the problem. I can go down an example. This week I just closed a higher end listing, a challenging client to say the least. The stove stopped working. It's an expensive appliance in this particular listing. And I knew he was not going to want to repair it or replace it, even though he had to, you know, contractually. And so I get the document and I was like, oh, darn it. Okay, what can I do? I went ahead and I had 2 people verify it's not user error. So to confirm it is not working. And then I coordinated repair companies and got estimates on how much it was going to cost to go out there and take a look at it and what the range could be to fix it. And then I got the prices of what it would cost to replace the stove and how long it would take to get in there. So then when I contacted my client, I already had the solution to the problem. I limited the conversation. I had a direct and clear path to where the conversation would go and to solutions that they can choose. And it ultimately saved my client less energy and less money. That's all I have for you guys. Any questions? Or my time's up?